Hello, everyone, and welcome to Optimizing Aging. My name is Jeff Seidman, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Brad Wadlow and Drew Avery. We are all 1997 Body of Work Challenge winners. And since we're doing this podcast, and Brad just happened to get out of his cold plunge like 5 minutes ago. So, Brad, why don't you tell us what's going on with that cold plunge?
Hey, that's right. I just got out literally 5 minutes ago, right before the podcast. You know, I think I need a little boost before the podcast. So, since we talked about that, I've been doing it almost every day. And temperature, the water temperature, I bought a pool thermometer for it. It's around 50 degrees, and I'm up to 6 minutes now, and literally just got out of there. Feel like $1 million right now, and it's something I'm just going to keep doing every single day. I've been monitoring my heart rate. Something kind of interesting. I've been monitoring my heart rate, and the cold plunge I did yesterday, my average heart rate was in the low to mid 30s. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But yeah. Wow. It's it definitely.
How many minutes did you start? And then, because you said you're up to 6 now, what did you start at again?
Like a minute. It was about all I could do to start.
Oh, did you happen to measure your heart rate when you were in that first time, and then compare it to what you're in now?
It took me a few times before I realized, hey, I need to start monitoring my heart rate. But since I have been monitoring my heart rate, it is getting a little lower. And when it gets down to like 32, 33, I'm kind of sitting there going, I guess this is okay. But yeah, I get out and feel like $1 million. So I'm just going to definitely keep doing it.
Well, as you get in, do you find that the same problem areas, for example, a lot of people do not like that when that water hits their waist, for example. Do you find that some of those areas that typically were real problematic when you initially started has subsided somewhat, and you can push past that?
Absolutely, Drew. Like right now, I used to, when I first started, I would sit there and I would really focus and concentrate and think, oh my God, what's coming? You know. Now I just go and I get in and I pay no attention whatsoever. I mean, it takes your breath away. It's cold. It's a little painful, but it's amazing how your body adapts to it. And it's no big deal at all. Actually, though, I had a little bike accident 2 weeks ago, and it's like I had a bunch of stitches in my knee and in my arm, and so I couldn't cold plunge for a week. So
did you notice the difference when you had a week break? Did you have to
Oh my God, yes. So I got used to it. I was cold plunge. I get in there and it's no big deal. Feel refreshed when I get out. 50-degree water. Everything was great. I had that bike accident and took a week off of the cold plunge. Got back in. Couldn't believe how. I mean, it was bad. It was like starting. It was worse than starting all over again. It felt like. I couldn't. In only a week, it did that.
Do you find because somehow your mind, because it sounds like somehow, yeah, your body's adapting, but for you to say mentally, because I'm with Jeff, it's like that really is such an unenjoyable feeling, and for you to just like, oh yeah, man, I just pushed through it, no problem. That's impressive. But you're saying that aspect of it was lost in a week.
Yeah, it was. It was really tough for me to get back in. But after a couple of days, I was back to where I was at before. So that's why, I'm never going to give it up. I won't ever give it up, because I know as soon as you stop, your body goes back to where it was before. And yeah.
Yeah, I want to say one thing about that. You know, I did cold therapy before, and it is completely miserable. And as Drew mentioned, I'd rather live a shorter lifespan than do the cold plunge therapy, because it's so freaking miserable. But when you say you feel great after you do it, how long do you think that elevated positive feeling happens after you get out? I mean, I know it diminishes over time, but how long do you think you actually feel that elevated function, just neurologically, physically?
About 3 hours. Jeff.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, about 3 hours. And I can't even describe how good I feel when I just get out, dry off, put your clothes back on, and it's amazing. Like you feel like really taking on the world.
Well, but this is the thing that gets me, Brad, is you, as I recall, you were doing this early in the morning, typically.
Yeah.
And I know when I get out of bed in the morning, I feel like I'm more susceptible to cold. In other words, you know how when you're
Yes.
spend all night, you get up from under the covers, it's even a shock to get out of the covers. And I'm thinking, okay, so already my body doesn't feel like it needs to get any colder, and to add more cold on this just is, like what Jeff would say, miserable. It kind of like I could do a cold plunge maybe later in the day, because when my body temperature comes back, but it's like double whammy. So how are you overcoming that sensation of being cold in the morning and layering on top of it another, like a cold plunge on top with already low body temperature?
Well, you're exactly right, Drew, and I feel exactly like that in the morning. I don't want to get out. I want to put the covers on and lay in bed and not get out.
Mm-hmm.
But I've got that in my mind that I know what I'm going to feel like when I get done. It's definitely not pleasant while you're doing it, and it's definitely painful and miserable. But I know when I'm done, I'm going to get that euphoric feeling, and I'm going to feel good for that next. There's no better way to get your day started, really, and so I kind of think about that sense of delayed gratification, and just jump in that tub.
Yeah, I want to say everything you're saying, Brad, correlates with all the research, all the science behind cold plunge therapy. They say you get that elevated feeling for about 3 hours.
Yeah.
And it's the only thing that you get an elevation in dopamine, serotonin, and you don't drop back down below baseline. You come back to baseline and you just stay there. Anything else that gives you a dopamine, serotonin spike also gives you a drop. Cold plunge is the only thing that gives you that elevation, and then you just go back to baseline. So everything you're saying correlates with all the research on the science and the therapy.
That's a really good. That's absolutely what happens, Jeff. You don't get that down. You go up and you pretty much you don't ever go down below that baseline. And it's just I'm hooked on it basically. Yeah.
And do you find that the reason you're going from like 1 minute to 6 minutes, is it a pain tolerance issue, or it's your mind's, like, is your body adapting? So technically speaking, you feel like there's less pain, or do you feel like it's your brain's ability to simply deal with that level of pain?
I think it's absolutely your mind's ability to deal with that pain, because while you're sitting in the tub, it actually gets better the longer you sit in it. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't hurt anymore to stay in it longer. But I've discovered this too. If you get in there and you have this rigid face and you don't move and you look like the cold's not bothering you at all, that's actually I think you get less out of it. I try to move around a little bit in the tub, mm-hmm. because it's surprising when you move around how much colder it gets. So, if you're having a bad day and you really don't want to be in there and it's cold, it feels colder than normal, then I'll kind of sit still. But I'd say 90% of them I'll move around and move that. I know you're cold. I have these gallon jugs that I freeze water in, and I can put those right directly on my chest, and you can't even feel it on there. So wow, it's kind of neat. But yeah, move around, get it colder, and I think it's your mind's ability. I don't really want to go over 6 minutes. I start to get a little lightheaded after 6 minutes, and so wow. I think it's probably time to get out there. I'm not sure where hypothermia sets in, but you're good. I know I'm good for 6, so that's what I do.
Do you find that with the gallon jugs that are frozen, are you dropping those in like just before you get in? Because I'm guessing you use the same water basically, or mostly the same water every time. And then just in the morning, drop those jugs in, or are they sitting in there all night?
No, I'll drop them in that morning, and then I'll drop them in that morning, and then let them sit there for about 30 minutes, and I'll shove them down in the water and stir the water around a little bit, make sure it's around 50 degrees, 55 is pretty cold, even 60 is cold.
Hey, so hopefully we get somebody that's listening to this that is interested in giving it a try, because we'd like to hear about your experience. I mean, I will say it does build mental resilience, so it makes you a mentally tougher person. And so it just, when it comes to working out or eating right, when it comes to those emotional challenges, they're going to be a little bit easier just from developing the resilience from this cold water therapy. And so if there's anybody out there that's willing to give it a try, which I hope there is, because we'd like to hear your experiences. But so it's a positive experience for you so far. But I'm going to move on, you guys. I'm going to move on to Drew. Drew told us he had an interesting post EAS championship experience. And it's let's hear the story, because we haven't heard it yet. So it's going to be interesting for all of us to hear.
Well, yes, that's part of the fun of doing this with you guys, is just talking about and just forcing me to remember a lot of stuff that all the experiences I'd forgotten. And I know when we talked about maybe sharing these experiences, I forgot that I had a very interesting experience in Hawaii. I was asked to go out to a gym and talk about the contest experience and give the foundational stuff for how you transform your body. And what was this? I think it was Flex Gym in Honolulu, I think it was. So shout out to you guys if you're still out there. But they were very great. They had a couple there that were members of the gym, and so they were hosting me while I was there. And so they just take me out around Honolulu, and I think we could take a look at some of the Hanama Bay, and it just came up that I was a scuba diver, and the guy that was hosting said, I've got some friends that are going out on a night dive. Have you ever done a night scuba dive? I said, no, that sounds fantastic. And so that evening we go out there, and I thought the guy was going with me, the host, that because it was a couple and the wife would drop him off and we're going together. He says, oh no, you're just going to go with friends of mine. So I thought, well, okay, everybody's been fantastic here. No worries, And so we get on the boat, and, they're not terribly friendly, but just kind of a normal, hey, how's it going? Kind of showing me where the equipment is and stuff. And then the host says, okay, have a great time. And boat pulls away. And as we're pulling away, I just noticed kind of a very subtle facial change in the group. And all of a sudden, they were speaking, I guess, in their Hawaiian language. And so I was not part of that whole thing. And then they would look over and kind of laugh a little bit, chuckle. So I'm thinking, well, this is odd, but, I'm just a guest, I'm going to do something fun. But it wasn't terribly friendly. And then they're continuing to talk in their language. And then I heard the word haole. Well, I don't really know much about the lingo out there, but I knew that was probably not a positive term towards me. So going out, as the boat continues to go out and out, now it's dark, very dark. And we are way out. I mean, the street lights from the beach look like teeny little things. And I mean, we're literally in the dark, except for the running light on the boat. And so as the boat's starting to slow down in the middle of what looks like nowhere, just far from the beach. Excuse me. So they get up, and they didn't say anything, but they got up and they kind of started getting things ready. So I thought, well, I guess this is it. So I get up and I start getting things ready, and they're not really saying much. I know enough about scuba diving as a certified diver to check my gear out and kind of know if everything's working, and everything appeared to be fine. But they all of a sudden pull out these spear guns. I don't have a spear gun. And they hand me the bait bag. And I say, hey, I'm not going to be holding the bait bag, guys. I don't even know where I'm at. The least thing I'm going to do is hold a bait bag. And so they kind of looked at me and kind of laughed like, oh, we thought we were going to get this guy. And so they're about 60 seconds ahead of me in the prep of putting on gear. And I've never done this. Okay. I never had been diving in Hawaii. I had never done a night dive. And here I find myself kind of with these guys that are a little sketchy in my mind. And they're have no, like they don't have any concern about whether my equipment's right or whatever. So again, I'm about 60 seconds behind and they jump in and I'm still getting ready. And they left a flashlight for me. And so I pick up the flash, I don't got my stuff on and I can kind of see underwater their light underwater. They're still close enough to the boat. And so I pick up my light and I have to hit it and it's like going in and out in light. Okay. So I've got what it looks to be a kind of faulty light, you know. So I get in, I got everything again. I don't want these guys to get too far away from me. So I'm kind of throwing stuff on pretty quick. And so I just say, I mean, I'm in pitch blackness and the driver really wasn't helpful either, you know. And so I just jumped in because I wasn't going to let them think like get one on me. It's like, okay, you're going to put me to the test, you know, ego wise. I was going to, you know, show them it didn't bother me. I'm in and then the light goes out. And so I'm literally in pitch black and I cannot see my hand in front of my mask.
Jesus.
So I'm banging, but I can see it looked about, I don't know, 50 feet, maybe ahead of me, that little glow of their lights.
I mean, you had to be fearing for your life a little bit at this point,
well, right? I'm lucky. I'm pretty relaxed around water, you know, so I don't like swimming on top of water in the ocean. So that was a little unnerving, but I felt I had enough wits about me to know I cannot lose those guys. Okay, because, you know, the last thing I want to be is just, you know, this lone situation out there trying to get back in. So I go under, bang the light, and realize if I hold it at a certain position, it's going to work. So I am just swimming through this black ocean, not knowing what to expect, quite frankly, with a light on me. Okay, because now I'm an attractor, if you think about it. By myself in a dark ocean, I'm an attractor. But I can still see those guys in the distance. But it's really a dim light. And so I had to force myself to kind of get my breathing under control because, you know, it was pretty anxious situation. But I feel comfortable underwater. So I kind of got my rhythm, you know, circular breathing, you know, just trying to getting into the rhythm of the fin, kicking my fins and making sure I'm buoyant and then going towards it. And just kind of enjoying the ride in, kind of surprisingly little life out there at that time for whatever reason. But I'm running into fish, luckily no big sharks, you know, but I'm out. Like I said, if that light goes out, I mean, I am literally looking at a pin light of a, you know, as my beacon to get me back in. So I still to this day don't know how long that swim in was, but about 100 yards from the shore, I had been breathing so hard the entire time I ran out of oxygen.
Jesus. Wow.
So then I had to go to the surface. Okay. So my last 100 yards in, I was on the surface. And again, if you've got a buoyancy vest on, there's nothing to panic about per se, other than you just feel like you're really at the mercy of the ocean. You know, you don't know what's under you or whatever. But so I'm trying to swim in and I'm looking way off in the distance and those guys are on shore. Okay. And they're walking away.
Jesus.
Off the beach. So I'm thinking, well, one emergency at a time. I got to get in, you know. So I'm working my way in, but then about, I don't know, it must have been the last 50 yards, the waves. The waves were big coming in. And so I am now in this wave kind of situation where it pushes me up onto the beach and I'm trying to claw myself in and it's grabbing me and rolling me out with all my gear and then rolling me back in.
Jesus.
I'm getting seasick just trying to get onto the beach. And so finally, after about 3 of those, I clawed in, you know, enough and crawled out, you know, on the beach.
You must have been exhausted by this point.
Oh, man, it was pretty exhausting.
Yeah, Jesus.
But again, thank goodness I feel pretty comfortable in water. But unbelievably, the host drives up. It's like they called the guy. He drives up. It's like, hey, how was it? Oblivious to the whole situation. He didn't know. He was shocked that happened, But it's like those guys, I think more than anything, I don't know. I think they tolerated me. You know, it wasn't like a friendly thing. It's like, yeah, we'll take the guy out. But man, that was pretty shocking because the whole trip was fantastic. Everybody was great. But to be in that one moment where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm actually going to jump off into this dark abyss really on my own.
Sounds like a Hollywood movie that's a nightmare. That's what it sounds like to me.
No doubt. So Drew, the boat takes you out way out in the middle of the ocean there, where you can just see some lights on shore. Drops you off, and when you first got in the water, the boat takes off.
Yes, there was no boat, and those guys were already under. And
Jesus,
at least I want to say at least 100 foot ahead of me. They had about 60 seconds on me. And again, I was aware enough to know that, man, I got to get in the water. You know, I can't dilly-dally around here. They're not waiting. And
oh my God.
Yeah. So that's
a lot worse than cold plunging, I'll tell you.
Well, but you know what's I was so excited on one end because just to think, hey, look, I'm doing a night dive, and what am I going to see? Again, I felt comfortable enough because that could have been a very overwhelming situation for some. But yeah. Again, I was excited. I was just more nervous about, I hope this equipment works. And those guys are leaving me. And I just didn't want to be out in an ocean, unfamiliar with currents, really unfamiliar with the wildlife, you know. And those guys are spearfishing. So that's the other thing I forgot to say that was really kind of alarming. I knew they were ahead of me, potentially killing fish and drawing blood into the water.
Oh my God.
You know?
Attracting sharks, right?
Yes, because they had the bait bag with them, you know? So, and I had no gun. And if they had a shark coming around them or whatever, at least they had the guns and they could kind of go back to back on each other.
So you have no protection either. And you're
None.
by yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
You know what, Drew? I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have got out of that boat.
Yeah, but it was an ego thing too. It's like, you know, those guys, now they, you know, I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of knowing I wasn't brave enough to do this.
Totally get that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, it could have been to my demise, but, you know, it was, it's a great story to tell. And once I got acclimated, I have to say, I kind of enjoyed it. It's a very exhilarating experience to see kind of that abyss of black with, you know, wildlife kind of showing up here or there. It was good.
Well, all I can say is thank God that didn't happen to me, because I'd still be having nightmares about it today.
But totally have nightmares about that.
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you an EAS story that didn't give me nightmares. That actually happened to me when I was actually doing the contest. When I decided to enter it, and I decided to win it, just like you guys. I said, I'm not entering this contest to finish it. I'm entering this contest to win it, just like you guys did. And so when I started training, I really upped my game, and I was going balls to the wall with my training. And about 2 weeks into my training, somebody at the gym walked up to me. He said, "Man, I've seen you train. You train so hard. Are you training for something?" I said, "Yeah, I'm doing the body of work muscle media challenge, and I'm going to win that Lamborghini." And he said, "Are you serious?" I said, "Yes." He said, "You know, that's a nationwide contest. You really think you're going to win that?" I said, "No, I know I'm going to win it." I said, "I'm going to be driving that Lamborghini." And he laughed at me, and he walked away, and he walked across the gym to his training partner, and he pointed at me, and they kind of chuckled. And, you know, underneath my breath, I said, "I'll show you, MFer." And so anyways, I went back to training, and I'd see them at the gym occasionally. And they'd both kind of snicker whenever they'd see me. A few months later, I show up at the gym with my former girlfriend at the time, Rowena, and we get out of the car and we're walking through the parking lot, and the guy sees me. And he said, "So what happened with you winning that contest?" He and his buddy laughed. I said, "You see that Corvette I just got out of? That's my prize. I won the contest." He said, "What?" And I went, "Cheek, cheek." I made the car, you know, lights go off and off. And I said, "That's my prize." He said, "You won?" I said, "I won." He said, "Oh, hold on. I want to talk to you." I said, some other time. And my girlfriend and I walked in. And, so anyways, it It was a great little story. The thing is, what I had happened my whole life, and just like you guys, I'm sure there's people that doubt you, and they're going to hope you actually fail. But, to me, that's more fuel for me. And obviously you're the type of guys that it's more fuel for you as well. So, it turned into a great story, EAS story.
Jeff, that's a good story. And I had my share of doubters too, but one thing you said, I knew I was going to win that Lamborghini. I thought that too, and I knew it in my head. I'm like, I'm going to win that car.
So did I.
Drew, I'm sure you thought the
absolutely,
same thing.
Absolutely,
Yep.
Yeah.
So I want to say, good thing we all didn't win, because we would have had to cut that car into 10 different pieces.
We couldn't take turns. It's mine this weekend.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's a good story. And guys, I remember we had a discussion earlier about people staying in shape over the years. Just anybody that entered the contest, and even Jeff, you said a lot of the clients you've worked with over the years, they perceive the transformation more as a temporary thing, like 12 weeks. They're going to commit to it for 12 weeks for a certain occasion, but then don't live it. So here's my question. Do you think that winning the contest really put us in a situation for longer term success and staying with it on really two accounts? One, reputation. Once you're acknowledged for something, you have a reputation you have to live up to a little bit. But also initially, we had a 5-year endorsement deal with EAS. And so that put us under, if you remember looking at the contract, we had to kind of stay in contest condition. I don't know if everybody did, but there was a requirement to stay in shape. And in retrospect, I found that the fact that we won the contest, once we submitted the pictures, let me back up and say this. Once I submitted the pictures, I was confident they were going to call. So I stayed training hard. So right off the bat, where other people may not have had that mindset, they may have dropped off their 12 weeks. So I stayed with it there. And then after winning, we all went home. Well, generally speaking, if you've signed a contract and you're serious about it, you're going to stay in generally good condition. And I look back on it, and it's like it was a forced habit maker. Now, all of us have that predisposition to probably do it anyway. But after giving that long speech, here's the thing. Do you find that winning the contest created an environment that allowed us to stay with this lifestyle as opposed to other people that didn't have that?
Go ahead.
I think that it did, Drew. It had some effect, right? And kind of like we were talking about the cold plunging. I don't know what that it's staying in shape's not easy, right? Like, you got to work out, you got to eat right, but then I felt I got such a good feeling from the contest, and I felt so good about myself from doing it. I never wanted to give that up. I wanted to keep that. I wanted to keep that ball rolling, and I think that's kind of what it was for me, just to stay in shape from that contest to today.
Yeah. So I want to say, for me, it was incentive as well, just because body work video came out, and that was being seen for years. Still today, people are watching it. And so it definitely created incentive. But I will say that still, we three are unique. We're anomalies, because I opened personal train gyms after that, and I've trained thousands of people. And after they got in shape, they said, I feel great, I'll never go back. And 99% of them do go back. So just feeling great and having energy in the moment, you say, I'll never go back, but 99% do, unfortunately. I don't know what it is that we three have that made us stick with it, but it's something that maybe it's our self. To me, I think I know what it is. It's our self-talk and our it's our self-talk. Just we're now the person that's a fit person, lives like a fit person, and would never go back. So most people don't look at it like that. They see it as a 12-week thing, or until I get married, or when I go on this cruise. No, we have a different mindset where we are fit people, we're healthy people, and we would never go backwards, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with everything you both said. The other interesting thing I think that when you get into shape that most people can't fully appreciate is when you take your pictures before and after, and you take it seriously, and you've created a really nice end product in your body. You're looking at it and go, wow, I've got the abs and lean and all these different things. Visually, I found that I reset my thermostat. So wait a second. If I don't look like that, I'm underachieving. I'm failing. And a lot of people don't look at it that way. And that's kind of a blessing and a curse in a way, if you think about it, because really life is more about more than just having a six pack and all those different things. And you can obsess about it too much. But I think generally speaking, I think it's a good thing for people to see what they're capable of, even if it causes them to not feel as good about themselves, if they let that conditioning go down a little bit. I don't know. I don't know if I'm explaining it right. You guys are nodding. How did you guys look at it when you saw your pictures? And did you find it was a motivator?
Hey, I do want to say something about and I think you guys would probably agree with me. I saw my pictures because it's different than looking yourself in the mirror. When I saw my pictures, I was impressed with them, but I still felt like I could have done better. I don't know if you guys felt the same way.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes. Absolutely, Jeff. And to me, like before we did the podcast, we were talking about EAS stories, and we were kind of all three talking, and I said that when I think about the contest, what I think about is the 12 weeks that it took me to get there. It was and to me, that's what means a lot, and it's like that with the with mountain biking and the Leadville 100 that I do every year. It's not the event itself, and it's not the before and after pictures for me. It's the journey getting there that keeps me going. That's what I live for every day, and maybe that's what's kept me in shape this whole time. Because it to me, it never really ends. It's something that you do every day, and I think it's the journey for me.
Well, I mean, it absolutely is the case for me. Jeff, I've always been curious about you in the sense that I felt like I loved training, still do. And if anything, it kept me from pursuing a life as a personal trainer, or at least one that did it on a daily basis at the gym, because I enjoyed it so much. But man, you're a passionate guy about this, and you're still training hard. How did it weigh? I know we probably touched on this. As I recall, we touched on this a little bit. But what is it that, like, you're in the trenches every day? What kept you going? I mean, do you just love it so much? Because if you're immersed in it every day, it's easy to get burned out. But you're not a burned out guy. You seem like you're still very passionate.
Well, so here's the thing. Maybe in my 20s and 30s, like most everybody else, whether you work out or not, you're still in pretty good shape. But as because in your 20s, you can still do a lot of things, even if you're not working out. In your 30s, you can still do a lot of things. But as you get into your 40s and 50s, and now I'm 63, you start to see the average population is here, and you're separating more and more as we get older. So the older I get, the more I see how hugely impactful exercising and eating right is. It's massive. Wow. If you compare myself at 63 to an average 63-year-old, massive difference. Whereas when I was in my 20s and 30s, it wasn't a huge difference. Now it is, even in our skin, in our energy, in our vitality, our passion, our creativity. It affects everything. And so I just see the huge gap between somebody who's inactive with participating in their health and their fitness versus somebody like us three who is very conscious of it and paying attention to it every day. And so it makes me like it even more because I see the massive benefits of it. The older I get, the bigger they get. And so I'm sure you guys experience the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely, Jeff. I'm gaining motivation the older I get. There's no question about it. In the weight room and especially on the bike. And my goal is to just keep riding that bike and keep doing Leadville. I want to be the oldest guy that ever complete that race is actually my goal. So yeah, I totally see what you're talking about. The older I get, the more I'm seeing that, and the more I'm seeing that gap increase. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Jeff.
And I find that just to build on what Jeff is saying is that I think if you are attuned to your body over the years, you become more aware, not only visually of looking at other people, but you become more aware of your own body and like, oh, wait a second. It feels like I might have lost a gear. Most people are not aware enough of their body that they can kind of sense those things. But I found in my own case, it was like, oh, wow, okay, I'm aware that I've lost something here probably sooner than most people realize they've lost it. And now I've got to, then by having that awareness, it kind of reinvigorates you to double your efforts in a way.
Right. Absolutely.
So it's that body awareness that kind of helps. Yeah, I found that we were very lucky. I mean, if you have that predisposition that enjoys movement and then you get acknowledged for it to some degree, I found that was a great motivator. I think that's what's driven me for the last 25 years is, still to this day, I feel like some obligation to look a certain way. Like, I just don't want somebody to say, that's the guy. What? That's the guy that looked like that at one time,
Yeah, you don't want to be that. Right.
Right. So,
the one thing I do want to say is, if you look at our before and after pictures, now I think that's 1997. So that was 27 years ago. Is that correct? 27 years ago. People would still recognize us from our after pictures. So that's amazing. Most people wouldn't be recognized from pictures from 27 years ago, but we would still be recognized from those pictures. And the one more thing I want to add is the amazing thing about that transformation that happened in 12 weeks. And I know I've said this before. We didn't have all the fancy machines and equipment that we have today. Yes. We didn't have all the fancy supplements that we have today. We just trained hard like freaking beasts and we ate right. And those transformations would still win us a contest today. 27 years later, with all the magical supplements, all the magical machines, we would still win a contest today with those same pictures. With the, I guess most people would think that, there wasn't proper supplementation back then. Or there wasn't proper bodybuilding supplements or machines were inferior. No, it's eat right, train hard. It works no matter what day and age you're in.
I was just having this conversation with my workout partner, Bill Compton, this morning. We were talking about, the Garmin watches and the Whoop straps and he's got a Garmin watch and we're paying attention to our HRV. And we was having a little conversation this morning and he's like, I miss the old Bill Compton that just wrote the workout down in a book, and we didn't have all this stuff and look at the results we got from it. So, what's the thing? Paralysis by analysis. Sometimes I think you can get that way. And yeah, that's funny you say that because I had that conversation just this morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody, I think that was a good podcast right there. Unless you guys want to end with something, I think we spread some pretty good information right there. Is there anything else?
I like it.
I think our goal of this is just having a good time and the time we get together and covering some interesting subjects, the good old days and some stuff that's going on in the news today. So I think we did it.
Yeah. So if there's anybody out there listening, you guys have some input, some ideas, maybe you want us to talk about, we'd be happy to do that. But we love telling our stories. We love getting together and reminiscing between us. And we love talking about what we're doing today. So I want to thank all of you for tuning in. It's been a great podcast, and we're going to do our best to start doing these more frequently. So thank you, Brad. I appreciate it. Thank you, Drew. And take care, everybody. It's been a great podcast.
See you next time.